The Forbidden Arts is a 2.5D indie action platform game being released on the Xbox One, the Nintendo Switch, Steam, and eventually the PS4. The game comes to us from Stingbot Games, a basically one-man operation producing this game over the past 5 or so years. As you can probably tell from this footage, the game doesn't look the best, but considering it's done by a single developer on their own for the most part, it's pretty excusable. But it's not just visually that this game finds itself a bit lacking. Story-wise, it's as generic as possible. You play a pyromancer, i.e. someone who can control fire, and you have to go around the world defeating different elemental heroes and stealing their powers. Or borrowing them, whatever. You do this to defeat a necromancer, and that's pretty much it. There's more to the story, definitely. I remember being told about some history of the world and stuff, but it's really not all that interesting, or at least isn't presented in a very interesting way. The level design similarly is somewhere that feels a bit generic. You start out in a kind of grassy world, there's also a desert world, and an ice world, and a swamp world. In fact, there's only really one area that's that interesting or different, and that's the level that's set inside a giant beehive. That's kind of cool, I've not seen that many games do that before. Let's just say the generic story and world building isn't exactly the biggest problem this game has. Gameplay wise, it does have some strengths. For instance, exploration is pretty fun. There's lots of these little gold blocks to find that unlock access to levels which give you health upgrades or magic upgrades. And in general, the platforming is easy to use and doesn't feel too stiff or awkward. But the combat is another story. You basically have access to 2 types of attack. You can stab things with your knives, or you can shoot fire at them. As you go, you unlock more powers, but for the most part, they're not combat oriented. A lot of the issue from the combat comes that it's just not interesting. You have a 3-hit combo that you do throughout the entire game, and all of the enemies are kind of badly designed. They're either so ineffective that it's meaningless to try fighting them, or they're too powerful and, well, the same result effectively. Most of the enemies in the game are really easily exploited. For instance, there's the enemy that shoots magic at you. When you hit it, it puts up a shield, you jump over its ground-based attack and do it again. Do that 4 times for every version of the enemy, and you beat the game, I guess, or the level with those in. Same thing with the frog enemies, they jump backwards, so if you can get one trapped in a corner, you can just wail on it till it's dead. And the guys in the desert level, which kind of bounce you back after a while, indicating they're about to do a special attack. You jump over that, they do it to thin air where you were just standing, and you kill them. Every single time. There is no surprises, it's just the same thing. There are a couple of enemies in the game that are slightly more annoying, for instance, though, which I just tended to avoid. You have these Minotaur-like things that kind of run at you from nowhere, and unless you know they're coming, they can basically be impossible to avoid, unless you get real lucky. So if you're low on health, you're probably going to take a hit. The other annoying enemies are these flying, like, frog sages that shoot homing bullets at you. They're not that easy to avoid or kill because they have such a small hit radius, and your magic is severely limited in this game. What this basically ends up with is you, at least in the case of me, are probably not going to want to fight these things. They're dull, they're repetitive, and they just kind of get in the way, and I know that's kind of their point, they are enemies, but they're not fun to fight. So, for most of the gameplay here, I just run through them. There's no point in fighting them, you don't get anything for doing it, except for the occasional health power-up, but even those are so rare, it's not worth it. You're going to take more damage than you're going to heal. So you just run past them all until you get to the boss. As I said, the strings to its bow really are the exploration and platforming concepts, but they're not that strong, at least not strong enough to hold the whole game up on its own. And the problem is that the exploration part, the collectibles, kind of go real south real quickly towards the end of the game. Towards the end of the game, before you can face the final boss, after you've done all of the normal levels that you see on the map screen, you have to find these things called the Phoenix Feathers. At the beginning of the game, they're kind of presented as an optional collectible you can get throughout. They don't really do anything, but neither does the gold actively, so it's just fun to find them. But when you get to the end of the game, you find out that you need 5 of these 6 objects, otherwise you don't get to fight the last boss. So, the solution to this is that an NPC in the last area will teleport you to any that you've missed, kind of rendering the whole explore to find them thing a bit moot, but I'm not gonna lie, if I had to look for them myself, I probably wouldn't have bothered. Regardless, after you find the first 4, you're teleported to the last location you absolutely need to go to, the 5th feather. Walking into this chest doesn't prompt the same open chest button that all the others do. Nothing happens. You can walk through it, you can jump on it, you can hit it with swords and fire and magic and whatever, and nothing will happen. So, I assumed this was a bug. I went in and out of the level numerous times, I restarted the console, I did as many different things as I could think of to make this work. nothing was happening. Eventually, contacting the developer, I was told this is not a bug. The chest is locked, and that you have to open it. Bear in mind, this has not been the case for any other chest in this entire game. No chest has been locked. You just walk up to them and press A. There was no indication that the chest was locked. Now, in fairness, there is a patch coming which is supposed to address this, which is the reason we're doing a preview and not a full review now. What this patch is going to do is going to add a bunch of NPCs that will give clues to the different, slightly more obtuse parts of the gameplay to help fix things a little, make it a bit easier on players. That is without a doubt one of the most roundabout solutions to a simple issue that I've ever heard in my entire life. You don't need a whole NPC to sort this problem. What you need is 4 words, a line of text or a speech bubble, the voice of God coming down from the heavens going, "This chest is locked." All it really requires is that the player know that something more is required of them. In a game that has unpolished graphics and unrefined gameplay, which in and of itself doesn't make a game bad, you need to realise that this comes across like a bug. You can walk through the solid object of the chest. There's no indication that it hasn't gone wrong. All that was required was a symbol or a sign of some kind to let the player know something more was required, to let them know that this is not a broken chest, it's a locked one. Instead of being a bug, it's part of the design, although, at least in my opinion, not a very good part of design. As it stands currently, I don't seem like I have that much nice to say about the Forbidden Arts, but you have to bear in mind this is just a preview. Until the final version of the game is ready, i.e. this patch that adds all these NPCs supposedly designed to help players through the game, I can't really give you an exact report of what the game is like. If you're interested in finding out how the game ends up being after this patch comes out, you should definitely check out TechRaptor.net, because we're going to have a full review out as soon as this patch goes live.